All right, this is on the black sun symbolism. What does it mean, and how does it connect to the feminine mysteries? This is inspired by the work of Gigi Young, and I'm going to start with a quote from her lecture, which I'll put a link in the description. So Gigi says, "The white sun is masculine, the black sun is feminine. These forces must work together to create alchemy. Black and white is a huge theme in alchemical drawings. The black sun is chaos. It contains everything. The reason we see it as chaos is not because it's negatively chaotic. It's not because it's trying to get you or psychologically make you crazy or frantic. The reason why we call the black sun chaotic and women chaos is because propensity with both the black sun and the feminine to dive so deeply into other worlds that it appears chaotic to us, because these other worlds have different laws, different types of consciousness that don't really align with where we are here. So it seems like chaos to us here, but to those who know how to use the black sun, it's not chaotic at all. So we have to understand there is the mature use of these forces and the immature or uninitiated use of these forces, which can be a more darker experience. The black sun is also associated with the shadow self, with the unhealed aspects within you, and also it's associated with the moon and Saturn. The moon and Saturn are the worlds that have gone by. So if we look at this image from Anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner, we can see that this is the planetary chain, the 7 stages or spheres that our Earth goes through in its full life wave cycle. And you can see we're currently down in the 4th, the lowest, most material realm, you could say, or dimension. The previous 3, Saturn, Sun, and Moon, collectively make up the Black Sun corridor. So the Black Sun corridor is the backward-facing impulse because it's in the past, because it embodies Earth's prior rounds. So you'll see in the so-called truth community, which gets these things twisted and wrong a lot of the time, but they are using real symbols when they talk about the Saturn Moon matrix, the cube. This is really referring to this Black Sun corridor. You notice the Saturn is part of it, Moon is part of it, and Sun, the old Sun, which we can now connect to the Black Sun. And you'll see also this is connected to the 8th sphere, this hellish realm that I recently talked about, where the fallen divergents get stuck as they await to be recycled or reabsorbed back into Saturn, back into square one. And in Qabalah, we have the Tree of Life image. Now, Gigi didn't really make this connection, but to me it seems like the Da'ath sphere, the hidden 11th Sephira, which connects to the abyss, is probably the same one and the same thing as this Black Sun corridor. You'll notice that the abyss separates the higher Godhead Trinity from the rest of creation. The Da'ath sphere leads to the realm of the shades, the Klipoth, the dark realms, which is, again, probably the one and the same as the 8th sphere. And each path on the tree is associated with a tarot card, and it's interesting that the High Priestess card runs right through Da'ath, right through the abyss, and there's a reason for that. So all the black gods like Kali, Set, Apep, Apollyon, Nuit have black skin, black as night, to show that they're becoming one with the abyss. The High Priestess card in Tarot goes down the path of Gimel through Dath. The High Priestess was in ancient ceremonial magic, the one who was purified and used as the psychic who could safely pass through the realms of the abyss and bring back high cosmic wisdom, prophetic information that would then inform society. The mystic, clairvoyant female priestess was thus revered in society, and the feminine mysteries had this role in society as oracle. The male mysteries would then take this intel that the priestess gathered, that she brought back from the abyss, and materialize it or manifest it in society. So that was the male role. The female mysteries are more obscure in our time because they got lost in time. They were passed down mainly orally, while the male mysteries were written down and preserved. This is just my hypothesis, but we can probably connect the black and white sun to these two sephira as part of the Godhead Trinity, as I was saying. So Binah is the sphere of Saturn, which is notoriously a black sphere. So you got the black sun, and then the white sun could be Chokhmah, the sphere for Uranus. These are the polar male-female aspects of the Godhead, the timeless higher realm above the abyss that separates from the rest of creation. And you can see the male and female aspects of the Godhead are reconciled or canceled out in Kether, the crown up at the top, Sephira number 1. But the combination of the white and black sun down here, below the abyss, is reflected from the crown down to Tipereth, sphere 6, right in the middle, where all the paths connect to. And Tipereth is our sun, the yellow sun that we see here in the material realm. This sun is more masculine as it's a manifestation, while its feminine counterpart, Da'ath, the shadow sun, if you will, is its invisible pseudosphere number 11, which we can connect with black sun energies, and also as the gateway down to the dreaded dark realm of the 8th sphere. So we can see how creation manifests from the unmanifested up at the top. The invisible black and white sun could be dielectricity, the mother, the black sun, and the white sun is magnetism, the father, combining to form the sun, S-O-N, electricity, the torus field, the human body, the material world, the earth, the torus field. The two twins, Tom and Atom, your anatomy. And there, the 13th path of the tree that runs through Dath, the High Priestess card. You can see the black and white pillars, which maybe clues us into the black and white imagery, black and white sun. And we're going to be talking about water. The flowing water is symbolic of the black sun and the feminine mysteries in general. You can see that her gown, her flowing gown, becomes water. But before we do that, notice it's important to see how this pops up in all the media today in its subtle imagery. The So Alice going down the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole is Da'ath, the black sun, going into Wonderland, a world that is chaotic, where the rules and laws of nature don't really apply, or they follow their own rules and laws. But we'll see water and pools, and so the film Minority Report, the precogs float in a tank of water. They were born with this psychic ability, like the high priestess in the ancient mysteries. They're precognitive. They have dreams about the future. The black sun connects to the past, as we saw, but it's also in a larger sense outside time in general. It represents the mastery of time, so the future as well. And we're going to get into that later on. This gets into the nature of how timelines work in general, the cause and effect having a non-linear aspect. So the black sun is outside time. So a skilled initiate, such as the high priestess, could go into the abyss and see the future, become a precog. And Gigi even pointed out how 11 from Stranger Things, she can remote view, and there's always water imagery. She's lying in a tank, or there's some kind of pool or water involved when she goes into her psychic space. This is from a TV show called 3% on Netflix. There's this guy who's constantly dunking his head underwater. This is from the OA. They use near-drowning experiences to trigger, near-death experiences to trigger psychic events or certain initiations. In fact, in the ancient times, there was this mystery school practice to trigger near-death experiences through drowning. This is where the baptism comes from. What's happening is it was loosening the etheric body from the physical body, which would awaken certain psychic faculties, higher abilities. But Steiner warns us that in our current time, this occult practice is no longer safe or even necessary, as we've gone through changes in our physical, etheric, and astral bodies. There's been a shifting in the densities and ratios of activity, and this is no longer the modern method for initiation. So Gigi made the connection to 11, and that made me realize that 11 is Da'ath, as we were talking about, is actually the 11th Sephira. It's not really a Sephira, it's a pseudo-Sephira. It's a shadow Sephira. But there you go, that connection actually inspired this whole video. So again, water dimensional travel in the OA. So water connects to the moon, and we saw the moon is part of the black sun corridor. We know that the tides are connected up with the moon. And as we were saying, the female has the more intimate connection with the abyss, and through her womb, which Gigi says is a psychic organ in her ovulation cycle. And thus, so the blood of the period and the blood moon, which reminds me of the symbolism of the vulture, and Kenneth Grant talks about that, the vulture who eats or drinks blood. And in Egypt, you had the vulture goddess Mut, which is where we get the word mouth or mother, and Ma'at. And it's a symbol of the destructive tendencies of the abyss, like Kali, for example. So remember, there's this backward-facing or destructive aspect of the black sun. And this is also depicted with the animals. The animals to us as sort of this backward impulse, or less evolved, you could say, impulse. So we'll see a lot of animal imagery when we're talking about the black sun and the feminine mysteries. For example, the bull, I've talked and written very extensively on the bull code and the two bulls and the cow goddess. And so we've got, just touching on it briefly, we've got the uterus of the female reproductive organ connecting to the womb. Uterus, torus field, as we saw, the torus field is really the atom, and then the torus bull. Notice the torus bull has the same shape as the uterus. So the bull or the cow jumps over the moon. Okay, again, the moon. And the matador says, toro, toro, in his bullfighting. And then there's, in Egypt, there was Hathor, the cow goddess. This is just some recap of various connections I've made with the bull code. The torus field, the two bulls, the 11, the twin towers, the 1-1 being the horns of the bull. You can see it popping up in strange places like the Red Bull logo with the sun in the middle. And just like the bull is an ungulate, so is the camel an ungulate, a hooved animal. And the word camel comes from gimel, which is the Hebrew letter associated with the high priestess. So again, there's 22 Hebrew letters, 22 tarot cards, 22 paths on the Kabbalistic tree, and they all link up and have their correspondences. So Gimel, or the camel, is a desert animal who can span the deserts, go for long distances, the desert being like the abyss. The camel can fall from heaven, cross the abyss, and survive because they have adaptations for storing water or storing fat, which converts to energy. And it's interesting that we're talking about the letter G, which is also the Freemasonic G, and it pops up in this film. I think it's Transformers. This is an image from Gigi Young's presentation. She pointed out the black cube imagery there, but also the G, that's Shia LaBeouf. So in tarot, the key card of the whole deck is the Fool. And the Fool in French is le mat, the mad one. Or, as we saw, Moot, the vulture. So the Fool is wrapped up in this black sun symbolism and the abyss. The Fool is on the precipice of the abyss, the cliff. A fool is one who is empty, or a bag of wind, a bag of air. And in Latin, the word for wind is folis, fool, folis. Because one must be, why is he empty? Because one must be purified before entering the abyss. Purity in this sense means having done the shadow work, having faced one's inner darkness, inner vultures, and overcoming this fear. Because if the initiate goes unprepared or unpurified into Da'ath, into the death ship, into the black sun, he will be driven mad by his own demons, which mirror back at him. He or she will be torn apart, just like Saturn tears apart and eats his children. This is why Kali and these black gods get a bad rap, why Saturn and the moon get this evil rap, why the eighth sphere is so gnarly. It's because of this destructive, chaotic force that tears apart those who are not ready. The dark abyss, or the dark aspect of the feminine is chaos, without rhyme or reason, which is like Lilith, for example. While the positive aspect is chaos as a dissolving force. It takes out the trash that then reamalgamates those lost souls who get lost in the abyss back into the Godhead, back into that higher Trinity at the top. So just as the vulture and the hyena reamalgamate death down here by eating the carrion, eating the death, so too does Mut or Nuit or Kali or Saturn, etc. So do they reamalgamate those who failed their initiations and were swept into the eighth sphere to become part of the black brotherhoods. So it's an eating, a digesting, and what do you do with your mouth? But you eat, you chew, you digest, and then the food goes down the throat, which is right there in Da'ath. You chew with your teeth, just like Thoth, teeth. Thoth was a moon god. So we've got moon stars, monsters, eating. And the past three phases or rounds of Earth are also associated with the lower three chakras. And the goal is to stay balanced in the heart chakra, which is where we are now, the Earth chakra, the Earth, fourth round of Earth. So when the female high priestess goes into the black sun, she's purified herself to be able to traverse those lower three chakras safely without getting stuck in them or wrapped up in them. So the energy of the feminine is down and in. That's the lower, or that's the triangle turned downwards. And so the dive is down and in, shown here. Inward because it's reflective. You see yourself in the mirror of the abyss. And conversely, the masculine is, the energy there is upward and out, up and out. So bringing what is inside out into manifestation. And the goal, since we all have both the masculine and feminine polarities, the goal is to unite the two, which is the Star of David. So the purity of the priestess in the feminine mysteries of the ancient past, it was also more about just gathering intel in these psychic spaces, these astral realms. It was also in some cases about becoming a vessel or pure virgin vessel for a higher being to incarnate. The so-called Immaculate Conception. This, for example, was certainly done with Mother Mary, and her name, Mare means water. Notice she's wearing always blue and red. Red for blood, like Bloody Mary, and blue for the water connection. But other avatars have incarnated at various points in history, and in order to protect their higher energies, had to be birthed by the womb of a woman who is deeply versed and initiated into the feminine mysteries as a high priestess. She couldn't have the stain of the abyss on her if this was to work. The avatars are an embodiment of the white sun, the polar opposite of the black sun, because all stars have this black sun, white sun duality, our sun being no exception. They need each other and are complementary when balanced. When there is a black sun imbalanced in someone, they are backward facing. They're looking towards the past, like old sun, old moon, old Saturn. They're stuck in the lower three chakras. They're not reaching the heart chakra. Oh, I included this. So whenever 11 uses her psychic powers, she bleeds from the nose. So again, blood is tied in here. Bloody Mary, the red of the vulture, moot, etc. But in materialist science, they're trying to grapple with this, these occult concepts when they speak of black holes and antimatter, which are just materialist terms for what we're talking about. And of course, the destructive power of these terms should be noted and obvious at this point. Remember when the Twin Towers fell and they were replaced by this abyss-looking thing, this black hole, this structure that goes underground and it's cube-shaped like the black cube of Saturn. And Revelation 9:11 speaks of this bottomless pit. And we've got the two towers now. They look like two snake eyes, two pits. And of course we have in that same Revelation chapter, the scarlet woman who rides the beast. And so scarlet, of course, being red, like the blood, the beast, like the animal, which is the backward facing lower three chakras. And man who can devolve into a beast if he fails his initiation here. The woman is of Babylon, which is a time period where this imbalanced, there was an imbalance toward the masculine, and these cults ended up destroying society. She's scarlet, like Lilith, like the blood of the vulture's meal, like the vampire bat who sleeps upside down, which gives you your backwards or mirrored aspect. In Batman, the Joker makes war with the bat, with Batman, but really they're both two aspects of the same symbol of this feminine black sun. The Joker is the clown, the clone, the mirror, the copy, who mimics or mocks. So remember, the initiate who tries to make this jump across the abyss is presented with a mirror of his own mind, his own darkest aspects of himself, his shadow self. He is mocked by his shadow self. He is clowned to see if he can transcend. If not, his soul then fragments and is cloned by Ahriman, by the dark side, to be used, and the dark forces to be used in his army against Earth. If he or she does make the crossing, he becomes immune to Ahriman and his forces and becomes part of Archangel Michael's army against the dragon. And the bat, of course, is the same thing. It's the sleeping upside down, the vampire bat who drinks blood. So they're basically two aspects of the same thing. Of course, the Joker hangs upside down like the hanged man, like the vampire bat. Joker is known for saying, madness, as you know, is a lot like gravity. All it takes is a little push off the cliff of the fool, down the abyss, down into the exit hole. In the new Joker film, there's always this prominent exit sign. So if he doesn't make the crossing, as we said, he can go mad, like Lemat, like the vulture goddess, like the mad one. And in Alice in Wonderland, nothing makes sense down the rabbit hole. The Mad Hatter even says, if I had a world of my own, everything would be nonsense. Nothing would be what it is because everything would be what it isn't. And contrariwise, what is wouldn't be. And what it wouldn't be, it would, you see? And he also says, a land was full of wonder, mystery, and danger. Some say to survive it, you need to be as mad as a hatter, which, luckily, I am. So remember, the black sun is chaotic, at least it appears that way, because we don't understand its laws. Many animals or beasts are used, as I said, as zootypic symbols for the black sun and the abyss. Animals represent a lower or previous manifestation of our own soul journey. We all went for a time through the animal forms in preparation for taking on human bodies. So you'll often see the raven as a black bird. The raven will be symbolic of the black sun. There's always a raven and a skull. But I've shown in my previous work the ape who japes or mimics or mocks. You've got the ape of Thoth, the monkey, the moon key. We've seen often the jackal or the black dog, Anubis, the guardian of the underworld, or death, Dath. Set had his dog familiar, the dog of Set. And the dog Set steals the eye of Horus, the left eye of Horus, which represents the black sun, the right eye being the white sun, Horus. So Kenneth Grant, an initiate of the OTO, and Crowley writes in the Night Side of Eden. At about the same period, the artist Austin Spare, working along similar lines, realized that in order to become God, man must regress to the primal or original state of consciousness. This is the ultimate rationale behind the attempts by occultists of all ages to leap backward and inward. Remember that up-downward triangle, in and downward, to the interior depths of the tree, thereby reverting to the pre-evol state of consciousness before Kether transmitted the current of manifestation from the eye of the void, or the ayin. Many magicians go astray on this backward journey. Their consciousness assumes forms of larval life that antedated the human. Then the ape of Thoth mocks them as they struggle to extricate themselves from a swiftly accelerating reversion of consciousness that finally hurls them into oblivion. Such is the fate peculiar to adepts who, nurturing their animal propensities while in the abyss, assume the form of beasts without first relinquishing the tendencies of the ego to use for personal ends the powers which these creatures symbolize. So again, it's all about transcending the lower ego if you want to be immune to the black sun as you traipse down those corridors. You can think of it as like this sticky muck or quicksand that's going to stick to you and drown you into oblivion if you haven't first incorporated your shadow self. And this takes immense training in purity, which in the past was mainly a female role in society. All right, now for the really out there stuff, we're going to talk about nonlinear time, because you can't talk about the black sun without getting into this aspect of nonlinear time. And I'm done with my notes, so I'm freestyling at this point. But so your higher self streams from the future or outside time, above the abyss of Da'ath. So when you fall from heaven, you fall into time, into linear time. And Da'ath means, in this sense, gnosis, knowledge, wisdom, because it separates you from infinite time, from infinite knowledge, from all the wisdom of the world that exists behind the veil, which we all got a glimpse of that before we fell. But we lost it, and now the job is reincorporating it, finding these lost puzzle pieces, putting the shattered face back together. And that's perhaps the Christ impulse. The Christ role is pointing you to these puzzle pieces of yourself. This is a graphic I made a while ago when I was studying Theosophy, and it's perhaps relevant here. We've got the 7 levels or stages of manifestation, from the highest spiritual stage down to the densest mineral stage. And so when you fall, you can almost look at it as like splitting of the atom, or a twinning process where one aspect of you falls all the way down to the densest mineral and has to climb back up. That's climbing up through the manifestation or the white sun from the past to the present. But then you also have this higher aspect of yourself which stays at the top, stays in the spiritual, and slowly works its way down to meet your lower self in the middle. And each aspect goes through 3.5 cycles, which is an important number. 3.5 is a very esoteric number, which pops up multiple times in the book of Revelation. It's also 42 months. 42 months is 3.5 years. And so you'll see 42 months in the book of Revelation. So the black sun is your future self, your higher self, streaming down to meet your past or present self in the middle. And in the human realm, which is smack in the middle, is where this meeting occurs, and where the human can then climb back up to the higher streams, having incorporated the lower, denser aspects. And perhaps this is why God in Genesis separates the waters from the waters, the higher from the lower self. Just like the sign for Aquarius, we've got the 2 waters, the waters above and the waters below, the black sun and the white sun, timelessness and time. And in tarot, the star card, number 17, you've got her pouring 2 vessels of water, the dual streams of time meeting in the middle. Notice the one vessel is pouring into the pool or the lake. That's the collective, the future, the aspect, the higher aspect. And her other vessel is pouring onto dry land, the mineral kingdom. So that's the lower aspect. But notice the lower aspect is slowly winding its way back into the collective pool, the higher heaven. so we can see maybe future and past. And it's interesting that the film Tenet has this similar idea of things from the future working their way into the past. And a pool of water is similar to a mirror. Remember the mirror of the abyss? The abyss mirrors back to you your own reflection. And only by stilling the mind in meditation do the ripples on that surface of the water become still, and a perfect, undistorted reflection is possible. In perfect stillness, you align with your future self, with your higher timeline. In perfect stillness, the initiate passes unharmed through the black sun, through the abyss. In this reflecting pool we see in Washington, D.C. on the obelisk here, and it's interesting because the obelisk can be associated with the phallus of Osiris, Osiris being like Saturn or Old Father Time, aspect of outside time as well. Now and the pool itself is like the feminine, so you got the phallus of Osiris, you got the reflecting pool of Isis, putting the phallus back together with the rest of those 13 pieces that were torn apart by Set. And this pool, reflecting pool, has to be still in meditation. The stillness of the priestess as she meditates then makes for a perfect reflection of the obelisk. Let's read a few more quotes from Kenneth Grant because these are very relevant here. So he announced, reading from Kenneth Grant, when he's talking about the aeon, the different shifting of the aeons. So he announced the dawn of the aeon of the daughter, which would complement and polarize the aeon of the sun, ushered in by Crowley. These two aeons run consecutively, but as Ahad observed, we should make a clear distinction between them, seeing them in true perspective against the background of the aeon of Ma'at, the daughter. The god form of the aeon of Ma'at, the mother, is the vulture. The god form of the aeon of Horus, the sun, is the hawk. But the god form of Ma'ayan, the daughter, is the vampire bat. The daughter is the mother unawakened. In the language of the mysteries, the daughter is the priestess entranced, i.e. immersed in magical sleep, and active at astral levels of consciousness. The magical formula of Ma'ayan therefore involves the mysteries of dream control. In my Lilith Code video, I associated the daughter with Lilith, the unawakened aspect of the mother, the female aspect of the Godhead. So Grant also writes here, Aleister Crowley claimed to be the prophet of a new aeon, the aeon of Horus, characterized by force and fire, which dawned in 1904. Then 44 years later, in 1948, his magical son, Frater Ahad, announced the incoming of the aeon of Ma'at, the aeon of truth and justice. According to ancient occult traditions, an aeon endures for approximately 2,000 years. The compatibility of two aeons running coevally is therefore a logical impossibility. It is now known, however, that the apparently anomalous coincidence of two or more aeons occurring simultaneously is not an impossibility when time is considered to be not a linear sequence of events or spaces, but a perichoresis, or an intrusion into the present space of the past and the future. which involves an implosion of synchronicity. And it's interesting that recently NASA claims to have discovered a reverse parallel universe. Scientists find evidence of a parallel universe running backward in time. Now, of course, NASA, we can't trust anything they say. They're run by the Black Brotherhoods. But they are giving us these coded riddles, coded news, which we can perhaps, just like antimatter or black holes, we can tie into actual esoteric truths that are coming out now. Thank you.